Margaret the Cahirla. At the outset, I'd like to welcome Minister Byrne, my neighbour. In a pre-COVID world, we used to meet occasionally in North Meath, and presumably we'll be back doing that soon, hopefully. I'd also like to join with Senator Sharon's remarks, Sharon Cogan's remarks in relation to congratulating Minister Helen McEntee and Paul Hickey on the birth of Michael Shane. Now, the Digital Green Certificate will facilitate people's right to move freely within the EU and will help support the lifting of restrictions across the Member States in a coordinated way. On St Patrick's Day this year, the EU Commission put forward proposed regulations for a Digital Green Certificate. The certificate would include proof of vaccination, proof of negative test result, or proof of immunity after recovering from a recent COVID-19 infection. This certificate is intended to be temporary, and each Member State would operate within their own systems or public health measures, etc. So there's domestic discretion, basically. Further work on the proposed regulation is taking place between the EU Parliament, EU Council, and it is expected that these negotiations will be finished by June, in time for the regulation to come into effect by the 26th of June. To date, Ireland has participated in the working group discussions at EU level to examine the proposal. Here at home, an interdepartmental group of officials from government departments has been set up, and the Department of the Taoiseach has established a subgroup of senior officials involving a wide range of departments to establish national policy in relation to this proposal. Member States would be expected to be ready to implement the new certificate by the 26th of June, with a 6-week transition period to the 7th of August. Issues that need to be ironed out ahead of implementation include the status of antigen testing or tests and whether they can be used, IT systems, border infrastructure for verifying certificates, etc. Those practical things, and of course the whole impacts of all the vaccinations, etc. and levels of immunity. Information notes on the draft Digital Green Certificate regulation have been submitted for Oireachtas scrutiny. The Joint Committee on Health decided on the 27th of April to keep the files under scrutiny, and the Department of Health is drafting an updated report for the Committee's consideration. Separately but relevant in terms of current vaccination verification systems, the World Health Vaccination Verification Records system is already in place, and the House should note this. It's already in place and used by people when travelling to destinations where certain diseases are prevalent, and we're all familiar with that. The International Certificate of Vaccination or Prophylaxis is provided for through the 2005 International Health Regulations. A person's vaccinations are recorded in a booklet. The colour and style may vary from country to country, which is then used along with the passport for gaining entry into certain countries. This is happening as we speak. Or in normal times would be happening. There's a possibility that COVID-19 will in the future be included in such a vaccination system. You cannot, a person's right to enter a country and bring home a serious disease or cause ill health had to be curbed in that fashion, and is curbed long before COVID, and people's rights in these regards are not absolute. Now, freedom of movement is, of course, a pillar right of the EU, and we want to preserve it, hence the merit of these certificates. But, of course, rights have to be, no right is absolute or not. Well, these rights are not absolute in the sense that if you're putting lives in danger, that had to be curtailed. We're a country of emigration. We're a country with a diaspora all over the world, and that makes egress from this country and access to this country and island so important. It's such an important, we have kinship all over the world. And apart from those sentimental, personal considerations and the right to travel and the free movement of goods, free movement of persons rather, there are compelling economic issues here. 143,000 people work in the airline industry in Ireland. 12,000 are pilots. 250,000 jobs are between the combined airline and hospitality sector. That's 250,000 jobs. Travel agents employ 3,500 people. So, and it's estimated that it will take until 2024 to bring us back to 2019 levels in our airports and in normal travel. And that's a scary statistic. So these are serious figures and a serious economic question, apart from quality of life and freedom of rights and all of that and freedom of travel. Dublin Airport is down about 95% of its normal traffic in 2020, and scarily, and Senator Dooley would speak more about Shannon, I'm sure, but scarily, Shannon and Cork are worse again. And that's how bad it is. 536 million has been lost, operating loss in Aer Lingus. Now, there were supports, of course, and it's right that we'd be proud of the supports that were provided by the government by way of wage subsidy, tax clawback, rates remission, and a 200 million operating fund. And that's always good, but you still cannot underestimate the human reality of our pilots, our whole plethora of workers in our airports, grounded, no work, and no motivation. These people have mortgages. We all know that in the whole catchment area of our airports, there's been built up so many major residential centres, and who are peopled and populated by airline staff, by airline workers. There's mortgages to be paid on these properties. There's families to be educated and reared in these airports. So effectively, my contention is that as soon as we can implement the digital green cert, it should be done. I think Ireland, and I'd be saying to the Minister, I hope he'll say in response, that there'll be no question of this populist nonsense that's around now, that we mightn't be up to speed with it. We will be up to speed with it, I presume, and I'd like to have that reiterated at the end, that we'll be up there and at the vanguard of it, and we'll be ready to go with every other country in Europe. We've always been that way, and I don't see why it should change now. I personally believe this is an important initiative to save jobs, to save livelihoods, to provide quality of life, to link us to our diaspora, and the whole free movement of persons principle. There are so many issues here that it's a no-brainer, basically, to put it into popular parlance. We just must have the digital green cert. We must implement them immediately, and we must move on it. And if there is a slight, and I mean, if that involves in some instances of people who are whatever kind of objectors and conscientious objectors, or whatever, if it does involve a curbing of rights in some stage, no right is absolute when the common good's at stake, except there are a few fundamental rights that are, but basically most rights are subject to the common good and the welfare of the general society. Thank you.
Thank you.